Hola Eduardo, ¿qué tal?
Hola, ¿me escuchas?
¿Me escuchas bien?
Sí, yo te escucho, ¿tú me escuchas bien?
Sí, yo te escucho. ¿Me escuchas? Ah, perfecto. Sí, sí, sí. Eh, Eduardo, la entrevista va a ser conmigo el día de hoy.
Ok.
Yo trabajo para WTW en la oficina que está en Londres. Estoy ahora en Inglaterra. Soy de
Ah,
Perú, por eso te hablo en español. Luego tenemos que hacer el switch a
a
inglés.
inglés, ok.
Sí, dame un segundo. Sí, perfecto. Em,
Ya.
voy a hacer el switch ahora. Em, um, Hi, Eduardo. My name is Augusto. I work for WTW in the Risk Analytics department. I am lead developer in one of our teams. We have multiple teams working in different models. And this is the interview for full stack developer based in Mexico. Could you start by introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Eduardo Blancarte. I'm from Mexico City. Um, I'm full stack developer since 7 years. I work in Telcel, that is a company that telecommunication. Um, my stack, it's working with C Sharp, with .NET, .NET Framework, .NET Core, with MVC, ASP in .NET. Also, I work with React in the front end. Um, in the back end, with databases, I usually work with SQL Server. I create tables, functions, store procedures, views, and etc. Um, Also, I work with cloud technologies like Azure. Also work with Azure DevOps. Sorry. Um, I implement unit testing and implementation testing in my projects. In the team, we work with agile methodologies like a Scrum. We have a daily meetings with 50 minutes per day. Um, what else? Well, that is my introduction.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we have a similar stack. Um, we have C Sharp, mostly these days .NET 8 on the backend, but we used to have a few .NET Framework applications. We have been going through some modernization projects to take them to the latest versions. But yeah, it's mainly C Sharp, .NET. In the front end, it's a little bit different. It's Angular, but it's also a component-based like framework. We build our UI based on components. Um, RESTful APIs, SQL as a data store. We have a few other data store technologies as well. Um, but let's go through the technologies that we have in common. Um, so could you tell me how is it like your day to day? Do you have like daily meetings, Scrum meetings, or stand-ups? How do you pick up work? Do you have like any kind of board? So maybe can you take me through a day?
Sure. Well, my my normal day is like say recently. I it start with my dailies with the team. Um, could be 50 or 20 minutes per day. Where shared updates or work projects we are working on. After that, I focus on my pending tasks, or if I need it, on high priority tasks. Uh, Sometimes I have meetings with the users to better understand their requirements, and also have meetings with my teammates to review our code and support each together.
Okay, cool. How are teams composed? So how many developers, QAs?
In
Is
the
there a
team,
PO?
we are five persons. I think so. We are four, no, three developers, our tech lead, and also we have a one PM, a project manager.
How about QAs? Do you have manual QAs or automation?
Well, all the team, we have we are QR testing.
Okay, yeah, sometimes that
Yeah.
happens. Yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk a little bit about C Sharp, .NET. You mentioned that you have been working with both of them, .NET Framework and .NET Core.
Yeah.
Um, what's the difference between them?
Um, well, the difference between them, and for example, .NET Framework is it's most common used with Windows application, and that .NET Core, it's a modern platform. It's much common used with Windows, Linux, macOS, and something like that. Is much common used with REST APIs. It had better performance and uh, support in on internet, and that's it. It's not actually .NET Core.
Okay. You said that you're deploying these to Azure. Do you know how are these applications are getting deployed into Azure? What kind of services, resources do you have on Azure running this?
um, yeah, well, I deploy my application with DevOps with pipelines in CI/CD. Um, I configure the pipelines to build and testing and deployment the application, the .NET Core, and the APIs. Also, I use Azure App Services to host the web application. It's easy, the scalability and the management. Also, sometimes I use Azure SQL database for the databases. um, that's it. Well, also I use Azure Blob Storage if I need it for the storage.
Okay, sounds good. App services. Are you deploying to Linux or Windows?
And Windows.
Okay, yeah. Because that's another benefit that you get from .NET Core, right? That you can deploy to Linux as opposed to .NET Framework, which was Windows only. Um, yeah, we have a blend between Windows and Linux in our case.
Okay.
That's all right. Yeah. Um, so let's go through a small use case. Let's say that we are in the risk analysis and insurance industry. So we have in many of our applications we have claims from clients, from users. These claims could be, let's say, accidents at work, um, and we are going to build a new portal. So this portal will be in the front end. It would be React or Angular.
Okay.
In the backend, we will have a .NET 8 API, and we are going to list the claims. Let's say that we are going to list claims that we have uploaded through another application, and These claims will have like the date, the name, the client that had the accident, or the user that had the accident, um, and then a description, and then the value of that claim, the value that the insurance will cover. So we have like four columns in a table, and we are going to build a search because we could have a lot of claims in this page. This search will have the start date, the end date, and the name of the user. So we have three fields to search through this data. What type of HTTP request would you use for this search?
Okay. I usually the HTTP get method for these services. The get it's common for get data without modify anything in the server.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's say that we went through that route and we are using a get request. So we have three parameters: start date and date, and the third one is the name of the user that is related to the claim. How are you going to pass these parameters into the request and then the endpoint in .NET?
Uh, okay, I got it. Um, in this case, I pass the parameters um, like a query string in the URL. For example, I have on my endpoint. It could be something like the slash API slash clients. Um, how can I say? Well,
The question
my
mark.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
After that, start date equals the date, ampersand, end date. After that, the, the the date, and finally the with a ampersand the username. That's my the way that I pass the parameters.
Okay, sounds good. Now let's say that the user um, is using the name input, but we have like a compound name. So let's say that is something like Juan Carlos, and we have a space into this name, right? How does that look in the URL?
Okay. In sorry, in this case, the space in the parameters in the URL must be codified to be valid. For example, the space is codified with a like a percentage 20, or must be replaced with the signal plus. For example, the name, like I said, Juan Carlos, I pass in the parameter like a Juan percentage 20 Carlos, or like I said, Juan plus Carlos.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I believe so far we are good on that area. So on the .NET side, we have the endpoint. As you mentioned, you could have something like slash API slash search. How does .NET handle these parameters? How do we read these parameters into the controller?
Uh, okay. Um, okay. I the parameters of the query is most commonly use attributes like from query to indicate that come the from the query string. For example, in my controller, in my code, up in my method, I put HTTP request in parentheses parentheses AP search. Um, inside my method, I put attribute, like I say, the from query data time, comma from query that data time, from query string the username.
Yep, sounds good. So now let's say that we are within the controller, within the method, and this is a application like it's totally new. We are building this from scratch. How would you separate like the layers of this application, the structure of the folders? What would you do once you get the parameters inside that method? It's a search. We are performing a search, and let's say that
Yeah,
this is stored in a SQL database.
yeah, I got it. I separate the application in layers to keep the clean architecture and organize. For example, my API controllers. Um, Also, I have another folder like the services. Like is I save all the files that uh, they process the logic and validation. No, sorry. I keep the logic, the business layer, business rules. Sorry. Well, that's my business layer. Another layer is my repositories or the access layer. That in this case, I have my class in, to connect with my databases, the consultants or operation and CRUD. Could be Entity Framework or AD.NET. And finally, I have another layer that my models or DTOs to define my objects that I use to transfer information between the layers.
Okay, good. Um, so, what would you recommend as a technology to query the database? What have you worked with before? What have worked for you, and what has maybe put you into some struggle to query databases? What's your recommendation for this use case?
Um, okay. Recently, I say the entity framework. It's I recommend entity framework because it's the way to consult the databases, the application with .NET, .NET Core. It's easy to work with databases using LinkU or sorry object models that I can build console dynamical console on and secure. Um, I have it's recommend to 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 search with filters and variables. In my experience, I can optimize some consoles using indexes and parametrics consulting, and sometimes my consults or most complex consults with many joins on many filters could be I could be have a low performance. For that way, optimize some store procedures or my views if I need.
Okay. Have you run into like any issue with optimization with SQL? Like a sub procedure or a query that was not very performant, and you had to make maybe some troubleshooting or some tweaks on the database. Have you been in that position before, or is it something that you haven't come across yet?
uh, sorry. Yeah, yeah, I have some troubles with that. I have troubles with the performance, with the consulting, the SQL, and store procedures. in one day, I have a console, like say the many joins and many filters. In that cases, I analyze the 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 query to to also I watch the execution plan to identify the trouble. After that, I create some indexes in my columns. That is much common used with my filters in and joins. For that way, I accelerate the search. Um, Finally, modify my consult to to create to to not create or not have subconsoles that it doesn't working to.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, sounds good. Um, okay, so now let's say that we have the UI already working, we have the search working, we have the database in place, but now we have to protect this API endpoint because this has like sensitive data, um, and there are many ways and many we can protect this API in different layers with different approaches. But what would be your recommendation?
Okay. I recommend use authentication and authorization to control who can be accessed in the endpoint. I use JWT to authenticate the users and validate the roles. No, the permission. Sorry. Uh, Also, I implement the OAuth. Yeah, OAuth if the application requires some integration between external system or single sign-on. Um, Also, I use HTTP to separate the communication and save the, the data.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. HTTPS plus authentication on the API using JWT. Okay, yep, sounds good. Um, how do you pass that token into the request? Where does it go?
The token. Okay. Yeah. The authentication I pass in the header with my request, my HTTP request. I use the header authorization in my barrier schema. For example, in my request authorization barrier space my token.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Have you ever run into a problem with JWT tokens, and did you have to inspect what was in there? Do you know what's in that token?
Yeah, I have to watch or inspection my tokens, especially with JWT, to understand the trouble to authentication. For example, um, I have a one token that have three parts codifies in base 6064. I have to inspection my token, use tools like JWT, IO, I think so, or some extension in my web browser. Um, in that case, it was some troubles. With that tools, they help me to verify if the token have the correct data and doesn't experience experience.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. Um, okay. So we have all the like that all that in place already. The get request, the search. So now let's say that we have to build a new page, and in this page, the users will be able to enter some claims. So it's basically a form, and this form has a few fields like first name, last name, the date of the accident, the description, and let's say that's everything for now. What type of request would you use in this case, and how is this data going to um, be supported inside the request?
Okay. Well, I use in this case I use the HTTP post method to to send the data of my or my form to server, and post is the recommendation to create or send new data in my client. The data I send in my body in this case, general in with I use JSON. For example, first name equal Juan, last name equal Perez. No, it's equals. It's 2 points. 2 points. Sorry. Um, date birth or birth date, and the example, no? And well, in my JSON, I send the data on my formulary.
Okay, just curious about the date. How would you send the date in that JSON? Is there a like a date type in JSON, or how would you handle that?
Okay, with date, well, in this case, JSON it doesn't have a specific type with my for the dates. It's only support basic types like a string, number, boolean, array, things and objects. In this case, for example, the dates I send in strings in a standard format. Uh, for example, the the format that have the date and hour in UATC format that is easier to interpret the, the in the back end and the front end.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Um, okay, we have talked about the APIs a little bit, front end. What kind of tasks have you done with React? And have you ever worked with Angular?
With Angular, yeah, I work with Angular. Um, I don't have the same years with experience like Angular and React. With React, I have 7 years with experience. With Angular, I have only three. Uh, but I can switch in the between the platforms of the language. So if you need that I work with Angular, I can work without troubles with any problem.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. You know what's the state of an app, of a front-end application? When we talk about the state, uh, what are we talking about? What's the state of an app?
The state is the information of the data that the application, the front end application saves and used to show in the interface. It's a sorry, it's a representation the actual states of the application with user data or dates on my forms or some results on the search.
Okay. Yep. Um, so let's say that going back to our use case where we have the search, how would you handle the search on the UI? So let's say that well, the API, we know that it's already working. How do we send a request from the front end application to the backend? It could be using Angular or React, doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I want to hear like more about the concepts.
Okay. To mm, well, um, to to manage some search in the UI, I first keep the 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 text or or the well the text in my component state when the user sent the search. For example, when the user click the button in my interface, I fetch, I don't know the meaning, the function to take the value of the state, and after that I do the HTTP request using Flash or Axios or HTTP client in Angular in my input in my input. Yeah, the request normally would be a get or post.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Sounds good. Um, okay. Um, so let's say that within the search that we have built, we are now going to add a new feature, and with this feature, we will have to once we have the results from the search, we will have to do like an additional search from a third party. So we have claims from our search, but now we want to take maybe information about the insurance of that users, and this is a third party API that we don't control. Um, but we know that recently it has been failing sometimes. Um, so how can we handle this failure? So let's say that 1 out of 8 times or 10 times it has been failing during the day. How can we handle that? It could be changes in code, outside of code. There are different approaches for this, but I would like to hear what are your ideas on that.
Okay. In this case, I use retries, automatic retries with a limit to try the call too many times before to fail. I apply backup, no, exponential backup to 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 keep the rights and not saturate the API. Also, I implement a timeout to wait in on defining the the response. Um, Finally, I use a circuit breaker about to call the API if I detect that it's failed a lot, and for that way protect our system, show friendly message to the users if the information is not available without affect the experience.
Yes, sounds good. Yeah, I think that I would also try something similar. Do you think that a cache of that data would always work? Like, let's say that we have the retry already, but as a second level of a second approach or a plan B, we will have some caching. Do you think that will work? And what would you suggest to cache this information?
Okay. Yeah, I use the cache. It's a good second option to improve the disponibility, the availability when the API falls. Also, the cache can save the answer, the recently answer, or the important data. For that way, uh, we don't have the dependency always the dependency for the API, the external API. Um,
Yep, yep. Where would you implement this cache? Any technology that you would suggest for this?
okay, um, I recommend the Redis, Redis, like a cache technology, because they have a high velocity and it have a easy to integrate with a .NET application, and Redis can I can configure the times to expiration time uh, for the for the data, and I know that is recommend to save the data, the temporal data, like search results or response the external APIs.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. Last question, and then we can switch to Spanish again. So let's say that this API, we know that it has been failing, but it's due to some process that they have to run. So it's a third-party API from an insurance company, and they have to run some calculations before they can return to us the results. So um, we will need a different approach. It will not be an API request, because it could take, let's say, that 10 or 15 minutes until they have run the calculations. And we can't keep the user waiting like on the screen for that long. So we will probably have to display a message saying that they will have to return, or they will get an email or a report handed over after a few minutes. What kind of integration would you suggest, given that we can't use API request to pull that data? Any ideas of other approach?
Um, okay, that's a good question. I suggest integration based in events or webhooks if the API don't support them. In a how can I say? If I do repeat consulting, the external system display or notify when the process is ready. Another option could be if sorry, no, it could be a system of uh, measures asynchron to receive information when the API is ready.
Yeah, yes. Let's go with you mentioned events. You mentioned um, something asynchronous. So let's say that it's a queue. Have you worked with any service bus or queues technologies in the past?
Okay. Yeah, a little bit. I work with some queues and messaging services to manage the asynchronous process. Um, I know, well, I work with Azure, the quick storage and Azure Service Bus to manage the tasks in the second plane. No. And these
Okay.
quicks
Yep.
allow this club process, manage uh, storage, to keep the measures, to process the the good way, um, com- confiable, confiable.
Okay. Cool. Yep. Yep. Um, Now I promise this will be the last one. Have you
Okay,
heard
no,
about
don't worry, don't worry.
topics? When you work with queues or service bus or that kind of technologies, have you heard about topics? What is a topic?
Ah, the topics. Well, um, the topics in the message services, like a service bus, is when it's a kind of entity when that allow a allow a patron, they allow the steps, the publish and subscribe it. In that way, send the message in a queue, a specific queue, and the message can publish in a topic. After the many subscribers can receive this message.
Okay, yep. Ah, ok, bueno, creo que esa fue la última pregunta de mi lado. Apagué mi cámara porque mi conexión no andaba muy bien.
Sí, no, no,
Por eso
no
que
te
apagué la
preocupes.
cámara hace unos minutos. Este, creo que estamos bien. Creo que yo terminé ya con las preguntas que tenía. ¿Tú tienes alguna pregunta para mí?
Eh, sí, um, bueno, me comentabas que tú vives en Londres, ¿no? No sé si.
Sí, sí, sí. Ajá, en
Ah,
Inglaterra. Sí,
el equipo con el que trabajas es totalmente remoto, ¿no?
Bueno, tenemos un equipo en Inglaterra en dos o tres oficinas grande. eh, y es una empresa bien grande, como que tiene alrededor de 50.000 empleados en el mundo. Pero dentro de nuestro equipo en Inglaterra debemos ser 25 personas más o menos.
Wow.
En México, estuve en México hace poco. Son entre devs y QAs, son 10 y el equipo tiene que crecer hasta 14 personas este año, me parece. Y también hay parte del equipo en India y en Estados Unidos. Así que sí, es como que bastante
Grande.
pluricultural, como que bastante trabajo en varias partes.
Ok, ok, sí. ¿Y cómo es trabajar con eso? De manera desde Londres, luego con los de México,
El-
los de
la
India.
verdad es que a mí me gusta bastante. Sí, tuve chance de ir a México hace unas semanas, estuve en México y fue la primera vez que iba para allá.
Ok,
Teníamos unas reuniones con el PO de nuestro equipo que venía de Nueva York. Entonces era como que un punto medio donde podíamos encontrarnos y a mí me gustó bastante. Es como que en mi caso como que yo no tenía la barrera del lenguaje porque hablamos castellano, español, todos. Entonces, fuera del trabajo que hicimos, como que compartir en la oficina y fuera de la oficina, saliendo a comer y, y tomando algo como que fuera con los chicos, fue bastante interesante, bastante bueno, como que compartir con personas como que de otros países. Lo encuentro muy bien. Y por el lado como que de las zonas horarias, también es bueno porque, o sea, ya termino contigo y ya cierro el día,
ajá,
pero en mi equipo tenemos un chico de México que está en México él va a continuar como que todavía unas horas adelante y mañana cuando me despierto probablemente ya hayamos solucionado algunas cosas que hemos dejado pendientes. Entonces, el trabajo se divide como que bastante bien, creo, como que avanzamos gran parte del día.
Ok. Sí, sí, justo por eso lo preguntaba, de que como hay diferencias de horarios. Ahora que aquí ya va a ser mediodía y allá ya es de noche, me imagino.
Sí, 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 ya van a ser las cuarto para las 6.
Ok. Entonces sí,
Sí,
sí, sí, es como que es interesante cómo se trabaja con diferentes zonas horarias. Bueno, esas son las únicas preguntas que tengo sobre el equipo. No sé si igual tú
sí,
quieras preguntar algo
perfecto.
más fuera de lo tecnológico.
Em, no, tal vez, ¿por qué estás buscando un cambio?
Bueno, llevo 7 años trabajando en Telcel. La
Ajá,
empresa es la única empresa que he trabajado desde que terminé mis estudios, la universidad. Y después de eso, pues como que quiero un cambio profesional, salir de mi zona de confort. 7 años han sido donde pues ya me sé el proceso, las reglas, el cómo se hace, el qué no se hace. Entonces me siento como que estancado, por así decirlo, y quiero nuevos retos, un nuevo giro de empresa. Entonces, principalmente es eso, salir
ok,
de mi conformidad.
sí, está bueno, está bueno. Em, ¿Estás en qué ciudad de México estás? Creo que los chicos están yendo una vez a la oficina, casi todos. Sé que por ahí hay uno que está muy lejos y no puede ir, pero la oficina creo que está en Polanco, se llama esa zona.
Sí, sí, me lo platicó la chica con la que tuve el primer contacto, se me olvidó su nombre. Y sí, me platicó dónde están las oficinas. Le comenté que de hecho yo ahorita estoy de vacaciones, porque soy 100% presencial en
Ah,
Telcel.
ok,
Entonces las oficinas de Telcel están en la zona de Polanco, entonces me queda lo mismo, prácticamente es lo mismo. Sí, no tengo problema con eso.
perfecto. Listo, Eduardo. Ahora, bueno, creo que el siguiente paso yo tengo que darle el feedback a mi manager, que
Ok,
él está es un inglés, está acá en Inglaterra. Y yo me imagino que después de eso, eh, la chica que te contactó inicialmente se va a contratar contigo nuevamente. Espero que sea rápido. Eh, pero sí, creo que de mi lado todo bien.
ok, ok, gracias. Vale, me parece muy bien.
Eso, Eduardo. Un gusto.
Igualmente, un gusto, un gusto. Que
Que
tengas
tengas
buen
buen
día.
día. Dime. Sí, sí, sí. Buen día.
Hasta luego.
Chao, chao.